All right, let's talk about an AI model that is doing something pretty incredible. It's called Kimmy K2. It's from Moonshot AI. And get this, it's an open model that isn't just playing catch-up with the giants, it's actually starting to beat them.
You know, it's funny. If you rewind just a couple of years, the quote you see here, that was basically the consensus. The idea of a top-tier large language model coming out of China was met with a ton of skepticism. Everyone thought the field was locked down by just a few big names in the West.
But oh, how things have changed. Fast forward to today, and that whole narrative has been completely flipped on its head. That same skeptical community is now looking at Kimmy K2, a model that's not just competitive, it's actually outperforming some of the best proprietary models from giants like OpenAI and Anthropic. The game has well and truly changed.
So let's formally introduce this new contender. What exactly is Kimmy K2? And how in the world is it making such a massive splash?
Well, the proof is in the pudding. Take a look at this data from a benchmark aptly named Humanity's Last Exam. As you can clearly see, Kimmy K2 is right there at the top. It's not just keeping up with the big, expensive closed-source models, it's beating them on this really tough test.
So what's the secret sauce here? Well, the clue is right in the name, thinking. This isn't just about predicting the next word in a sentence. Kimmy has a fundamentally different and frankly much smarter way of solving problems. Let's break down how it actually works.
The magic at the heart of Kimmy is something called interleaved chain of thought. Now, in simple terms, it means the model doesn't just think in a straight line. It thinks for a bit, then it acts by using a tool, like searching the web. Then it looks at the results, thinks about them, and decides what to do next. It's this constant dynamic loop of reasoning and doing.
So here's what that looks like in practice. You give it a complex problem. First, it breaks that problem down into smaller chunks. Then, it might start by searching the web to get some data. It'll reason about what it found, and then maybe it'll decide to write and run some Python code to analyze that data. Finally, it pulls everything together to give you a complete answer. It's kind of like a detective, gathering clues, forming a hypothesis, running a test, and then cracking the case.
And what makes this so incredibly powerful is that it can handle vague or really open-ended questions. You don't have to spoon-feed it a perfect, detailed prompt. You can give it a fuzzy goal, and it will figure out the concrete, actionable steps it needs to take to get there all by itself.
Okay, so let's move from the theory to the real world. This thinking process doesn't just make Kimmy K2 a better chatbot. It transforms it into an incredibly powerful agent that can carry out complex, multi-step tasks from start to finish. And check out this number, because it really says it all. 200 to 300. That's how many actions or tool calls Kimmy K2 can string together in a row. This shows an amazing ability for what's called long-horizon planning. Basically, the skill to stick with a complicated goal over many steps without losing track.
So what can you do with that? Well, in one demo, someone gave the model a single prompt: find all the Kimmy release dates and build a website to show them. In 1 minute, it had a plan. By the 3-minute mark, it was already searching the web and writing code. And in just 5 minutes, a complete website was built and live on the internet. That is a staggering level of autonomy.
And we're not talking about some simple text-only page. The final result was a full-featured website. It had a complete timeline, written descriptions for every single milestone, and even custom-generated images. And it was deployed and live. All from one single request, all in 5 minutes. That's what an agentic model can do.
All right, so you're probably wondering, what kind of engine is powering all of this? Let's pop the hood and take a quick look at the specs that make Kimmy K2 tick.
First off, and this is a big deal, it is an open model. You can find it on Hugging Face. It uses what's called a mixture of experts architecture. The best way to think about it is like having a huge team of specialized experts. For any given task, the model only calls on the few experts it actually needs. That's why even though it's a massive 1 trillion parameter model, it only uses about 32 billion at any one time, which makes it super efficient. And it's also trained to run well on less powerful hardware, which makes it way more accessible for everyone.
But here's something else that really sets Kimmy K2 apart. A lot of the time, when you train a model to be really good at technical things like math and coding, it kind of loses its creative soul. It gets boring. But somehow, Kimmy K2 excels at both. It's a technical powerhouse that can also do fantastic creative writing, which is pretty rare.
So, let's zoom out. What does all of this actually mean? When you combine this level of performance with an open model and an efficient design, well, it has huge implications for who gets to build the future with AI.
Now let's talk about price, because this, right here, might be the most disruptive part of the whole story. You can use this state-of-the-art model for just $2.50 per million output tokens. That is ridiculously cheap. It means frontier-level AI is no longer a tool just for massive corporations. It's becoming a utility, accessible to pretty much anyone with an idea.
And Moonshot AI is taking this really interesting step to make sure you get what you pay for. They've created something called the K2 Vendor Verifier, which publicly grades other companies on how well they're serving the model. It's a clever way to make sure that when you use Kimmy, you're actually getting the real Kimmy performance, not some watered-down version.
At the end of the day, I think this quote really captures the big picture here. The price of raw AI intelligence is just plummeting. So the real focus shouldn't just be on who has the highest benchmark score anymore. It should be on what we can actually build with these incredibly capable agents that are now suddenly at our fingertips.
And that brings us right back to the most important question. With access to this level of artificial intelligence for literally pennies, the old barriers to entry are just gone. So the question is no longer just what can be built. The real question is, what will you build with it? The field is wide open.